Significance of cultural comparison. Now, to wind up our discussion about the significance of culture in second language acquisition, we have talked about different strategies. We have looked closely at how each strategy can be executed in the second language classrooms. And we are now moving on to our concluding discussion about the significance of cultural comparison if the learners are being taught a second language. Now, the teaching of culture in second language classrooms is not a new idea. That is, this is not that we are initiating and this is a recent development. In any case, for a long time now, people have been, or researchers have been drawing attention to the problem that even when the learners learn a language, they do not know how to function appropriately in the second language culture. So this inappropriateness somehow put them at odds in a certain situation. It leads to certain awkwardness, embarrassment, miscommunication, disruption in discussions. So there has been recently, for quite some time now, a lot of focus on the teaching of culture when we are teaching a second language. So it is not surprising that you might notice that most of the lessons in second language classrooms are based on holidays, customary clothing, folk songs, food. However, the lessons themselves have actually contributed very little in effective functioning in another language and society. Now, what is the reason behind it? The reason behind it is that at times when the lessons are totally focused in the Western context, the students feel sort of like alienated with the content. They cannot, if they have not traveled abroad, if they are not exposed to the Western culture, they feel they cannot connect with it. And this also affects their target language learning because they focus on only the forms. And at times in our English classrooms or in our English curriculum, you must have noticed in Pakistan, the English lessons are focused on Pakistani culture. And in this Pakistani culture, they're talking about different traditions, different things. Now, this is perfectly all right. But what we miss over here is the interconnection between Pakistani culture and the second language target culture. So yes, studying about Pakistani culture in a target language, for instance, the English language, allows the learner to function properly within Pakistani context, but it somehow affects them negatively when they move to a different context or different culture of the second language. Similarly, if we are using only the second language target culture to teach the second language, they are at a loss of, and they do not use the language appropriately in the given culture, in their own culture. So somehow the learners do have to create that third space in which they must sort of adjust the language they are using, the forms of language, their second language that they are using, to somehow suit the culture within which they are using the language. And they can only do that if they are totally familiar with their own culture and with the target culture. So it's extremely important for them to know how to use the second language in greetings, how to address other people, make requests. And this is just as important as the grammatical knowledge or the structure of the language that they need to know. They need to know what is appropriate, when is it right to intervene within a conversation, what are the forms that we can possibly use, are those forms acceptable in the target language, or are they seen as offensive? And if they're acceptable in the target language culture, are those forms acceptable in Pakistani culture or in their own culture? Or how do they have to sort of negotiate the language forms in a way that they are acceptable in this culture also, and they do not sound offensive? That is because language is never neutral. The language actually reflects the beliefs and values, and we need to now, when we are learning a second language, and if we want to use it in different contexts, we need to also know or clearly understand the beliefs and values of the culture within which we are using a language, and how do we adapt the language to be used in different culture. So culture must be fully incorporated as a vital component of language learning. This is simply the same way as when you are driving a car, you are told and you know you're very proficient in, for instance, you have learned how to drive a car very well, but if you don't understand the road signs, if you don't understand where a specific road is taking you, then your driving the car cannot let you achieve the goal.